Well, I hope I will meet your expectations. ORF, Austrian Broadcasting Corporation, public broadcaster in Vienna for about an audience of for 8 million people living in Austria, so a rather small country, just to give you an idea out of which perspective I'm talking. Yeah, I have this thing here. Yeah, and it works. First, a bit of setting the stage and a bit of terminology. If you look at archiving as a layered model, you see the files underneath. I only will talk about files in this talk. Other kind of media is no longer relevant in our perspective, because we have just 1.5 years to go to get rid of all of the tapes, and film is a particular thing. That's not of importance here. So it's the files underneath, and then there is the metadata. We call, just for the people who are not used to archive terminology, we call files essence very often, refer to them as essence. That came when we found out that we are dealing just with data some years ago already, with zeros and ones, and to distinguish the metadata, the descriptive information from the files, we call the files essence. Then there is the metadata, the next layer above it. Then it is the infrastructure. It is IT infrastructure mostly, office infrastructure, climatization for the IT infrastructure, and for the rest of the tapes that we still have. And then the last level would be the operations, what we do with all this infrastructure to deliver our services. And my talk, and throughout the next presentations, we will try to touch upon all these aspects. Mine will be on the lowest level, on the files and the file essence. And one of the questions when I typed down this information was, what is so media archive specific about that? What is so media specific about that? It's the infrastructure of a lot of companies these days. We should keep that in mind when then looking for sustainability aspects. A few words about sustainability before I then come to the files. Sustainability, as we already have heard today, is about long-term perspective in a lot of senses, but one of the senses that is mostly connected to the term sustainability is the ecological footprint. And one of our concerns is to reduce this footprint. And thinking about that, I thought to myself, okay, let's think it to the extreme. If we would abandon our operations, our footprint would be gone. So a bit following the line of thought, wouldn't be the world better off without us? Of course, that's absurd. But when I try to think, okay, where from this standpoint, how do I get to a practical approach? I saw that there is a variable is missing in the equation. Do you say that? I don't know, but you understand what I mean. And that is that what we are aiming at is the greatest business impact at the least footprint that we have. And that means that we need to know our business goals, the essence of our mission, in order to talk about sustainability. Because sustainability will, in the end, also mean that we have to accept a certain footprint, because it's the essence of our mission. And we have to look for things that we could abandon, efforts that are not in the essence of our mission. That's what we are looking for, probably. But we can only define that if we have a clear view of our mission and our business impact in our companies. And of course, if we abandon something, it should be, the effect should be relevant, and it should be quantifiable and measurable. That's a bit what I thought of, which are some conditions I would like to have in mind when I now indeed come to the files. We as archives are always suspected to store too many files, or very often we are confronted with that. There is the very well-known 3-2-1 rule of data security, and this rule, it's not just, it's a common sense rule. You find it in the internet very often, but it has been published by the United States Homeland Security as a standard that is mandatory for a public institution in the United States to at least meet this standard. And this standard would be, you need to keep, we have heard it today already, the question how many files, you need to keep 3 copies of the same file on 2 different media. What is media? Say on 2 different storage technologies possibly. And one of them, that's one of them should be a copy on a different location. That is this rule that has also been published or republished by the U.S. Homeland Security. Of course, it's weakly specified. It leaves room for interpretation a lot. For example, some of you might be in this situation, is 2 files and 1 videotape, is that already 3? You could say yes. You could say, I wouldn't be that sure, because you never know when the 3rd copy has deteriorated to an extent that it's no longer a copy, a security copy. The question, what is different media types, is something that is also weakly specified. I know that a lot of archives simply say 2 generations of LTO would be different media types. So if one would be a technical misconception, you would have your files on the other. And of course the question of different locations, how far apart. It was interesting to hear your definition today that there should be different natural risk scenarios, disaster scenarios applied to different locations. Wouldn't be the, yeah. Let's take our company as an example. Our 2 data centers are on the same campus, so the risk of fire is probably well taken care of. The risk of a meteorite, if we probably less. So all these things have to be taken into consideration when it comes to this question. How many files? Next question, we also have heard about that today. It's the energy consumption. I give you some figures that we have recently calculated. We run a rather huge disk archive. It consists of 18 petabyte of hard disk space in a redundant way, and it uses 500,000 kilowatt hours per year. When I first heard this figure, I wasn't sure, is that a lot? Of course, it's more than my household uses, but if it's really a lot, I can give you two relations. One is, we have broken it down into households. It would be about the energy consumption of 120 households. So 2 apartment buildings. I would say for the whole video memory of a nation, fully accessible, 2 houses, energy consumption, it's not that much. Then I have tried to compare it to the energy consumption of my company. The electric energy of our main center is 67,000 megawatt hours. Difficult to calculate, but in fact it's this 500,000 kilowatt hours is 1% of the whole of our whole broadcast operations. Just to give you an idea of the figures. But of course, even in storage technology, we have footprint perspectives. One is not an option. We have found out because we have we have taken a sample of 1 month. We have measured the energy consumption of this storage every hour. Then we had a grid, and most interestingly, we absolutely know that we have less traffic on weekends, on Saturdays and Sundays. It's 1/3 of our working day operations. The energy consumption doesn't drop a bit. You don't see a difference. And that is one characteristic of these IT systems we are dealing with, that we should keep in mind. Most probably for at least a part of our systems, if we have it, we should use it, because it doesn't make that much difference if you use them a lot or not. And when I heard it today, this question, do more emails produce indeed an measurable and impact on the footprint level? I don't know it, and it was stated as probably they do. Seeing these figures, I would say probably not. Probably if you have an email system worldwide running, use it. It doesn't make a matter of if it's a million emails or a trillion, or it makes a difference, but most probably not a huge difference. That is just an assumption. I don't know it. I just derive it from this experience, and I just say we should take more, we should try to find out and then finish the discussion, and not to discuss too many things that probably have no effect over and over. We need to measure, and we need then to fix our knowledge. But there are perspectives using sustainable energy only for a hard disk archive like ours. We see flash storage coming up, and flash storage will be in the range of 1/3 or half of the energy consumption of spinning hard disks, and it will be feasible, I think, sooner than we think, even for huge deep archives. And of course, we could go back to, in our case, I would say go back to LTO and create it in a way that we use more cold storage on LTO. It's also probably a way to go. So, I have to carry on. I want to pass a bit more practical information that we simply found in our company, and that will be about the quality of our video files. What is a video file? I have to just in short give you a short idea. A video file basically is essence, that is the video stream, the audio stream, plus metadata in a container. The essence, the containers, we know them, it could be MXF, MOV, AVI. The metadata is on several levels in a video, and it's important to know to understand what video quality is, or the video file quality. It is in headers. There is a header of the file, group of picture headers. There can be descriptive metadata. There is a footer. So if you look at the video file, it is like you look onto a raindrop. It's representing the outer world. On the first level, I said there is the metadata and there's the essence, and the file is the essence. But if you look into the file, it's again metadata and essence intertwined, and that's where video file quality comes into view. What is file quality? Not that easy to explain. An easiest idea to understand file quality is corruptness, that we already have heard of and experienced very often. There is a file, you double click on it and nothing happens. Okay, it is corrupt, but what is corrupt in the file? The file, if you think of it, it's corrupt as a whole. You very often find out it's not. It's just a piece in the file that's not correct, so it can be corrupt in parts. But if you can fix that, how severe is that indeed? So I would rather look at file quality as deviations from standards. So there is a standard how a file should be written, and files can deviate from that in a lot of dimensions. They can deviate from threshold values that have been defined. And indeed, it takes a bit of thinking, and because there are a lot of categories to be taken into calculation to understand what the quality of your files indeed is. What is the potential problem? If we say that file quality is not just an on and off factor, it is that some files have deviations, but usually these files work very well in your environment. But if you look at it at the situation over time, the problem of files is, on the left hand, I have tried to symbolize there are so many institutions that produce files or software instances, encoders, transcoders, editing suites. They have software versions, different software versions. They have different settings. All the files flow into the archive, and over time, a lot of other software devices try to read these files. Files that are 10 years old, and they are more or less tolerant to errors in the file, and then it happens that you cannot use a file at a given point in time. I have looked at it practically in our company when we had, I thought at least you would be able to read that. Yeah, I think you can. I'm the one who cannot. I tried to find out how many encoding instances have produced all our files. That's a view onto our archive 1 year ago. So we had 2,100,000 files, and 97% of these files were produced by 27 encoders. And if you look at it and know a bit about the TV world, you see what kind of house we are. We have a huge Atom implementation, and we are editing with Adobe Premiere mostly. But the problem are not these 93%. The problem is this list that I cannot show you to be read, but I have a magnifying glass for the result. And it is that the rest of the files, that is 7% of the files, but still 144,000, are produced by 380 different encoders or encoder versions. And this information, we have this information in our databases, and it was very important at that point in time because we had indeed a problem with one particular encoder who did poor files, but we were able to detect them all. They were at the end just 70 files produced by a certain encoder, and we were able to eliminate them. But you need all this metadata to cluster files, to find files that are of poor file quality. And therefore, we decided to check better on our file quality. What is file quality, or what is a quality check? There, of course, everyone in the broadcast area knows what an explicit file check is. There are tools for that. The most well-known tool is Bayton, a software suite that detects file quality. But it's not just that. There are a lot of implicit ways to check file quality, because if you have played out a file, it most certainly is of good quality. If you take care for certain principles, taking it to the archive, what we of course do, and that is checking, you touched upon that as well, checking hash values all the time so that you see that the bits and bytes are still entirely the same. If you take in files from playout, you for sure know they are of good quality. If you can generate preview from a file, you know that the quality is quite well. Or to put it the other way around, the really bad files that try to enter our archive, they do not come over preview generation, the generating preview, they cause a problem there. Then we find out that it's indeed a very bad piece of file, and we can go back to production to get a new one. In short, our file quality story, because I think that is the best way to get the information over that I would like to transport. We started file archiving in 2012. Already at that time we had file quality checks. We had it as a watch folder implemented, and when we had problems with the file, we threw it into the watch folder, and then we found out, okay, is the problem on the file level? Is it on the level of our infrastructure? Then over time, we indeed ran into problems with files coming from the archive, not in our in-house production. That for our in-house productions, the files were in good shape, but certain external producers had problems, and we, after a certain time, we were able to identify, okay, that were files of a certain source over a certain time that are not compatible with a certain generation of AVIDs below a certain software version, software release. And there were we made two experiences. One is when we found out that we put these files into our file QC, the file QC did not find anything suspicious in these files, so it was not yet in the test plans, the particularity that caused the problems. And there was always a rather simple fix. It was to transcode the files to the same format again. So from MXF to MXF, afterwards the files were pretty operable. We did that so often that we even gave it a name. We call it carbonization, because the transcoder who did it for us was the carbon coder, and we used then to say, okay, we have a problem with this file, carbonize it, and afterwards it's pretty okay. And because this was it's not the best solution, but it was and is a practical solution, and therefore we indeed built it in our system, a feature that we in the archive system can mark files that have these quality deficiencies, and if they go out on certain workflows, they are automatically transcoded to itself, and we have fixed the problem for the time being. Of course, we would like to have other fixes in the future. There are possibilities to fix files, but for the moment we do it with transcoding. So it's an automatic feature of our system that we can label files and say this file has to be transcoded if it goes outside our company. And we would like to expand this feature in a way that if there are other ways to fix files, header repairs is something that is less invasive than transcoding the whole file, that we then in the database simply will say, do a header repair or a certain kind of header repair for these 12,000 files and for this and for that. Yes, that's what I wanted more or less say here. And then after a certain time, we then said, okay, we should try to monitor file quality a bit more broadly, and there we set up a project to really. This project is set up on a farm of QC computers, 15 servers involved, not only for the archive, but mostly for the archive. And but we soon also calculated that if we would try to quality check our whole archive, it would take us years with this infrastructure. So we started to make a sample of and we start to check everything that flows in and into the system, and we check everything that flows out of the system and we implemented a ticket system if files come in of poor quality, that we really can check out which device produces this file, and we can fix that. And here are the first results of this project. The blue line is the line of the files pouring into the system, and it shows when we started, we had, that are weekly figures, that we have had about 40 files a week that were of less good quality, let's put it this way, but and within 2 or 3 weeks we reduced it down to 5-6 files a week that still have these quality problems, because we managed to loop every error back to the device that produced it, and then we fixed the device, and so for the future I think we are well off with file quality. All the files that are going out of the system are also checked. This one we cannot fix, they are years old, but we keep the data in a database. And if you know that we take into the archive and take out of the archive about 3,000 files a week, then these 40 files that we detect, the outgoing files that are of poor quality, are 1% of the archive holdings. It's not dramatic, I would say, but still something that should be treated seriously. Just to give you an idea how these error reports look like, you can read a bit the errors that are coming up. What you see here is errors can be on timecode level, so that you have it at several timecodes. Errors can be for the whole file, but mostly you get a bit of an idea. Mostly it is that a certain threshold is not okay. For example, the last file here, it should have 12 frames, but the group of picture has 14 frames. I asked our technicians, okay, but what's the problem with this file? There's no problem with this file, but that's the standard. And probably in the future there will be a software that really will rely on that standard, and probably this software will not be operable with these files. Probably. But at least we know about that. Repair strategies, there are two. Either you repair the files on the fly, that's what I would like to do, and using this database that we build up, we will even find fine and even finer possibilities to repair the files on the fly when they go out of the system. At the moment just by transcoding, but it will be more detailed. Over time we will start probably to replace files, but that will be require a lot of logistics that carefully would have to be planned. Yeah, and now I'm already at the end of my presentation, and I have decided 3 headlines that I would like you to take with you, at least for consideration. And that is that the problem of file quality is not that of an entire file loss. Of course, from time to time we detect files, but we would have detected them also without file quality, without a file quality project, files that really need to be replaced. But in most cases it is that files that we in a future mass interoperability we probably could have problems with these files. Each of the files you can repair, but it takes a certain effort, and if it's too much, we will not be able to take this effort. That's the one thing. It's not about having the file or not having, but how much effort you put into it. Still, you need to homogenize file formats and file quality. That's what we do. Even so, you will never end up with a perfect archive. And what we mostly need is to collect formal metadata on file upbringing and deficiencies, because if we have that, we can check new infrastructure already against a good sample of our archive, and so we will not that easy end up with indeed having problems with a new transcoder or a playout device. And then, of course, we can, so if we have a good database of our file deficiencies, we can easily set up rules for clusters to be repaired. 30 minutes, 13 seconds. Thank you very much.